Mahomes looks to throw it. Pump faking right side. He wants it. A comeback. It is caught by Kelsey. Touchdown! Kansas City. The game is over. The Kansas City Chiefs are champions. How about those Chiefs?
Welcome to the Kingdom Corner. We're your hosts. That's Dale. I'm Andrew. We're here recapping the greatest game of the 2022 season into the 2023 postseason of the Kansas City Chiefs, who are now the world champions once again for the third time. Dale, how are you feeling on this fantastic Victory Monday?
Oh man, I mean it's unreal. It's surreal. So debating whether we're going to the parade or not, and so we'll figure out if we're going to be there at the parade and figure out those logistics. But it's sweet to have a parade.
Absolutely, yeah, can't beat that. And I mean, Mahomes now has his second MVP, his second Super Bowl MVP, second Super Bowl trophy. I mean, his young career, there's no one who's had a better start to an NFL career than Patrick Mahomes.
No one.
Yeah,
5 AFC championships, 5 Pro Bowls. You could just, I think he was all pro, offensive player of the year one time. Yeah. I mean, he's just taking the league by storm, and he continues to do that. So very impressive.
Yeah. And not to contradict you or anything like that, but he has 2 All Pros. So
2 All Pros. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But, But to your point, every year he's been a starter in the league, he's been a Pro Bowler. Every year he's been a starter in the league, he's never finished short of the AFC Championship game.
Never. Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible.
So we're here in a dynasty. We're at the baby.
Are you labeling it a dynasty?
Oh yeah, I mean, it has to be. I mean, 5 AFC Championship games. He's played in all of them. 2 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl appearances. I would say that would classify as a dynasty.
I struggle to give them that label yet. Well,
just the start of it. I mean, we're in the start of it. We're in the beginning stages of the dynasty. You got to admit, I mean, 5 AFC championships are not obviously the goal for any team, but to say, hey, he's given us a shot every the 5 years he's been playing. I mean, I guess he's played 6 years, but the 5 years he started as the quarterback is just unreal.
Yeah. Well, it's like we've said before, and many other people have too. When you have 1-5 back there, your team's always got a chance. Always.
That's right. Let's not take it for granted.
Both Super Bowl wins we've had now, we've been trailing by at least 10 points and have won those games. So,
and I mean, for me,
incredible.
I never felt like it was outreach at any point.
No, I didn't. The only question mark I had, and maybe we can get into this here a little too, is right before half, Mahomes comes up, and tweaks his ankle again, re-aggravates that injury.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you feeling at that point when Mahomes is hobbling off the field and very obviously in pain on the sideline?
Yeah, not great. Not good. Because it didn't look like they hit his left. It didn't look like they were working on his left ankle. They were working on his right ankle. And so I was like, oh no, did he do something totally different on the sideline? And he was in immense pain. And so we can't ever question that guy's toughness. And just, that's probably the only doubt. I was like, is he going to be able to come back? Is Chad Henne going to come in and all that? But it was unreal.
Yeah, and really that's the only question I really had even going into halftime, because I thought, man, as long as Mahomes is on the field, even as we've said even on this podcast before, as long as he's 75, 80%, I'm not worried, right?
No, not worried.
100%, but as long as he can get himself on the field, basically, you're going to have a chance to bring it back. And speaking of Chad Henne announced last night, I don't know if you saw this on his Instagram, that he's calling it a career.
Okay.
He's
all
officially retiring according to his Instagram post, and is a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and has been has some very integral roles in both those championship runs.
Both of them.
This year alone, he led the Chiefs on a 98-yard touchdown drive in the postseason against the Jazz, which is the longest postseason touchdown drive in Chiefs history.
Right.
So,
and then the first
one, can't take anything away from that guy. Even as a backup, he did his role and he did it very well.
And then even the first championship where for the Mahomes era was he had that 4th and 1 against the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
And so, which was huge to keep us going.
Yeah.
So,
and that was followed up by the third down play where he ran it, dove for the first down, and they marked him barely short of it. So, you can't say that guy doesn't have heart or doesn't play well, even so. The question to me with the Chad Henne thing is, and and I guess we don't need to get too much into this yet. We're about the Super Bowl, but just something in the future is, do we need to bring another veteran quarterback in for a backup to Mahomes? Not because of necessarily having a veteran just to have a veteran, but Chad Henne has been in the league a long time.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It'll help Mahomes out and help him his film study and other things
Right.
as well. So
I think you hit it right on the head, and we can talk about that. But yeah, right on the head. With this, the film study help, watching film and maybe seeing things that Mahomes doesn't see, or Mahomes giving Henne assignments to like, hey, look for this and report back to me. And so, yeah, I think a guy who can watch film and understands film would be key.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a couple questions we're going to get into later on this episode as we work through the game. But first, and we're not going to answer these at this exact moment, but one, what are the chances that the Chiefs are going to repeat next year? Who's your MVP for the Chiefs outside of Mahomes?
Okay.
What about, field conditions for the play?
Oh, yeah.
And, turning point of the game. But as we jump into this game, though, here, the Chiefs and Eagles face off, Super Bowl 57. I mean, before the game started, the Fox commentators, every single one picked the Eagles.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yeah.
Right. And
on paper, you should. On paper, you should.
Absolutely, you should. And we talked about before, on paper, the Eagles are the better team.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you can't factor into paper is Patrick Mahomes.
That's right.
What you can't factor into paper is Travis Kelce.
Boom.
Right? I mean, just those two alone. Yeah. And plus, you can't factor in the speed of Tony. You can't factor in the ball awareness of Nick Bolton and where the ball is at all times.
Yeah.
There's things that don't quite factor into paper, but I agree to your point. On paper, you should pick the Eagles.
You should.
And outside of the Chiefs and Kansas City media coverage people, the majority of the nation was picking the Eagles.
Yeah. And I think they heard that. So let me ask you, how did you feel? So the Chiefs win the toss, they defer, kick off to the Eagles. The Eagles just march right down the field and put 7 on the board. How did you feel at that point?
I wasn't worried one bit at that point. Not one bit.
Okay. All right. Not one bit.
The reason why is because Spags has been his MO for whatever reason. He constantly gives up plays early in the game. Constantly. Yeah. But he is great at making defensive adjustments, and I think a lot of people have been talking about getting rid of Spags for whatever reason.
Hey, don't be pointing that. Don't be pointing those fingers at me.
Yeah, I didn't mention any names, but since you brought it up, it was somebody on this podcast, and it was not me. So, but people brought it up for it. But I think when Spags gets into situations of playoffs and he just has one team to prepare for rather than preparing for a whole season, I think he prepares the team much better. And you give him 2 weeks, just like you give Andy 2 weeks coming off a bye or anything like that. I mean, they're great coaches. Whether they're perfect or not, those are things about each coach we probably wish was better, but they're both Hall of Fame. They're both Hall of Fame, but they're both great coaches.
Well, Spags, though,
for sure.
Spags is one. I mean, as a DC, he has beaten Tom Brady twice, right?
Yeah.
With the Giants.
Yep,
and so,
right.
I mean, and then now he has 2 Super Bowls with the Chiefs as the defensive coordinator. So, I mean, like, we might have to start talking about Spags getting a gold jacket.
You know what? That's a great point. So, there's a lot of people who've not beaten Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Spags is not one of those people.
Right. So,
I mean, the reason we brought, other than Spags against the Buccaneers, Tom Brady, he didn't pull that one out, but he's still 2-1 in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady.
There you go. Yeah. I guess we should clarify that. That's true. I forgot about that. I don't count that Super Bowl because of our offensive line.
I agree. It's almost not even worth it. So
again, we don't want to get in the weeds. We kind of talked about that earlier, but just the fact that if Spags stays, which I think he's under contract, but he could still leave, someone could pick him up. This whole team's coming back because they're all rookies. On the defensive side of the ball. And so majority of them, and we can look at that more, but just another year with them in his system has to be good.
Yeah,
has to be good.
And so talking about those rookies, how do you think the rookies, specifically in the secondary, how do you think they played in this game?
Yeah, I thought they played well. I think the AJ Brown touchdown. I think next year that's an interception. I think McDuffie
Yeah.
being in the league a whole year, I think he figures that out. He figures out the play. I think that's an interception. So he was there. He was in the
Yeah.
right spot, but I just think he'll learn and grow from that. And so I thought they played great.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall that secondary played great. There were some very obvious mistakes that they made,
Yeah,
and a lot of them were on big downs and big plays,
yeah.
and
A
just the
lot of third
rookies getting
downs.
just a little bit out of position. But to the credit of the Eagles too, there were some plays even on third down that it was just a better offensive play.
Yeah,
And great offense always beats great defense
yeah,
every time, because you place the ball in the perfect spot where even if you're in perfect defensive coverage, your defensive guy can't get there and your
yeah,
offensive guy can. And I mean, the tight end for the Eagles made catch after catch in big moments. So
yeah.
hats off to the Eagles, first of all.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's
They
talk about that.
played
Yeah,
a great game, a great
yeah.
game. And so,
Jalen Hurts with 300 yards. I mean, running. I mean, he did everything he could have done. And in fact, he may have been the better quarterback on the field, except for that. I think Mahomes came up in the bigger moments, right?
yeah,
He
yeah,
when he needed a
absolutely.
play, he gave you a play, and so
Yeah.
it was fantastic. But yeah, Eagles. That offensive line's real. The defensive line, I don't know. I don't think that did they get
Well,
any
it's
sacks.
they
I
they
mean, we could
got
talk.
yeah, they got 0 sacks. So we'll get into this a little more. So
Okay, all
let's
right, all
start with
right, all
this.
right.
So the game starts, the Eagles march down, get touchdown right
Yeah,
away. I'm not nervous at all because I'm just thinking, well, this is just how
yeah,
the Chiefs defense seems to roll at this
yeah.
point. The Chiefs march down, get a touchdown to match them, right?
Right.
But then that's when things start falling apart a little because the Eagles go down, score again. Chiefs
Mm-hmm.
get the ball, and they get down within field goal range, and Butker misses a 43-yard field goal. Right? How are
Yeah.
you feeling in that moment when Butker misses that field goal?
Oh man, not good, not great. I didn't care for the. Again, we've talked about this on the podcast all year. Is we're both, I think, in favor of just going for it. And I didn't think field goals were going to win this game. And well, I was wrong, I guess, because it did.
That is
But
true.
overall, that early on, I was like, so once he misses, it's like, oh, they should have just went for it and kept the ball going and kept the drive going. And so, but yeah, it was definitely interesting. And so I felt a little bad or a little off on that, but no, it was you got to trust Harrison, and he did come up in the end and did win us the game. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, that is always a good thing. And so Harrison Butker misses that field goal, and I'm just kind of thinking, man, we're back to week 1 here in Arizona where Harrison Butker first injured his leg,
Yeah,
on a kickoff because of bad turf.
yeah,
And last night, it was no exception again. The guys on
yeah,
both teams were sliding around. The Eagles kicker on a kickoff had the same play that injured Butker the first game of the
yeah.
year. The only difference is his leg slid instead of, catching, a little bit.
All right.
And so, yeah, so the field I didn't feel like was great played also. Here's my question is, should the NFL at this point, should they start having requirements for their fields for game days?
Yeah, I
And,
think.
and especially for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it should be requirements. There should be a check because as for the NFL's sake, you don't want a conversation the next day after the greatest game, after one of the best seasons I can remember. I mean, just overall one of the best seasons. You don't want that to be a topic of conversation. You want it to be focused in on the game itself and not the grass. And that guy calls himself the sod father. I think he needs a new name.
Man. Yeah. That's not one you want to go with, especially when you're having issues on the field like they were last night. And so this is just an idea I've been kicking around, but and obviously this probably isn't foolproof
Right.
idea either, but just an idea off the top of my head here is, what if the NFL had to require certain field measures for whatever reason for any game? Because you remember a few years ago, the Chiefs and Chargers were scheduled to play a game in Mexico.
Yeah.
And that field was in such poor condition that the NFL actually moved the game and said, no, we're not playing there. We're not going to take our players to that kind of field. And what if And I'm not saying the field last night was near to the shape that field
No,
was.
no.
It wasn't. But you don't want even second, third week of the season or week one like we had with our kicker, right?
Yeah.
Where maybe Mahomes goes down for the season. Maybe Jalen Hurts goes down for the season. Maybe these people and these players who are now becoming the face of the NFL are out for the entire season. And now the NFL has a product that's not going to be near as great because all their top people are out for the year because of injury due to field issues.
Yeah.
And
so
yeah. And so I think the NFL needs to have certain requirements, and what those requirements are, I'm not a field expert to be able to tell you what those would be, but they have to have certain requirements to meet for each game. And that field would be graded by whoever the NFL appoints to do so. And so they would go to that field maybe the Wednesday, Thursday, and by Friday for sure, they make and so like Wednesday, you can say, hey, you got to fix these things before the week's out. Right. And by Friday, because usually Friday, Saturday is when the teams would fly out. And so before a team would fly out, that field would be given a grade, on, a 1 to 10 scale. So for example, I know that sand volleyball has a 1 to 10 scale. Based on the quality of the sand, and like the Olympics would be a 10, they would require a 10 for sand volleyball. And so, you'd give a ranking of that sort to a field. And I'm not saying they all have to be 10s, but they should probably be at least 8 or 9s or whatever it would be. And so if a team didn't pass their field requirement by that Friday, the home team would then have to do one of two things. They would have to find another venue that would be approved by both that'd be approved by both the NFL and the opposing team. Now, the opposing team can't just say no because they don't want to, but so you'd have to think through some of these things. But they have to either be able to find a venue to host that game with a certain number of seating requirements, or if they are unable to, the visiting team would then host that game and not be counted off at any sort for, being another home game.
Right. And I mean, like, you make all amazing points. As you were talking, I was just thinking about, and I know this may be crazy, and it probably takes a lot of money away from different teams and owners. I'm sure the Arizona guy, the owner of Arizona, got a big check for hosting hosting the Super Bowl. But the problem was that they've had 2 years. They knew the Super Bowl was going to be in Arizona for 2 years. So they had 2 years to make sure this field was ready to be played on and not to be a topic of conversation. I'm sure the sod father is sad about this.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Not only that, but they had a month between because the Cardinals were not in the playoffs.
No.
So I don't know when their last home game was, if it was the last week of the season but whenever it was, they had a minimum of a month with no one being on that field to get that field ready. And we know that many other teams throughout the league will actually replace their sod in the middle of the season when a team is going to be gone for 2 to 3 weeks. And that
the Chiefs have done that. Yeah.
And they've done it multiple times, and there's been no issues when the team comes back. And so you're telling me this guy has a month and the field is in this kind of condition?
Yeah. So my crazy thought, the NFL is worth billions and billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
Why don't they just build a field in a stadium in a city that maybe doesn't have an NFL team?
So kind of like the Canton game in the preseason.
Yeah, well, not that, because those fields out here are terrible too, usually. But where they would have a field.
To that point, they would have the NFL would actually own a neutral site field, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
yeah, I think that'd be a perfect alternative. Yeah, I would.
And then have all the owners throw in some money, and then they would all get a piece of the check. So I mean, like they would all get part of ownership, or if you wanted to put in a part of that ownership, then you're like, okay, this is a neutral field. It's always going to play in. I don't know what's the neutral, like a big city, but a big city that doesn't host, and like that we own this field and we're going to make sure it's the best to its ability. And so that would be an interesting idea. But I think like this take that whole conversation out of existence where like, oh, the field was terrible, but they would control the field. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think that's a really good idea. So, but back to the game. So that's a good conversation though. So we can probably revisit later on. So, but back to the game. So the first half, I kind of thought going into this game, I said, the Chiefs defense, they've got to get at least 2 stops in each half. They don't have to stop them every time, but 2 stops in a half is what I thought going into the game. But then I don't know if the exact average was, but the average drive for each team was not 2 or 3 minutes or 4 minutes. The average drive for these scoring drives were probably 7 to 9 minutes. And so when you have those long of play drives, you really only need one stop a half.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs got stopped twice in the first half. They missed field goal, had to punt twice. They only forced one punt in the first half. And so, but even so, I thought, because of Nick Bolton heads up play, right? Jalen Hurts, great game, as we talked about. You look on paper, Jalen Hurts probably maybe deserved the MVP other than one thing, that costly fumble.
Yeah.
And that costly fumble cost them the game. And so for that reason, I would say he probably didn't deserve the MVP. But either so Jalen Hurts is running with the ball, just drops it. No one hits him, just drops the ball. And as he's dropping this ball, Nick Bolton is in the right place at the right time, picks it up, runs it back for a touchdown. And that, even though that didn't necessarily put the Chiefs ahead at that point, it did tie him at that point. But, otherwise, the Chiefs would have been down by 17 going into the half, and they were only down at 10 at the half. But either way, so Nick Bolton was all over the field. Jalen Hurts, other than that one play, had huge play. But then the second half comes around, and the Chiefs' offense, they find their gear, they find their momentum, they find their fire, whatever you want to call it. They can't be stopped.
No.
Right? They are just moving the ball. And the Chiefs' defense, forces another punt in the second half, and that was enough to change the game right there.
Yeah. Yeah, the Chiefs offense looked really good in the second half. I think they had 4 possessions in the second half, and
scored every time, right?
Every time.
Yeah, in the fourth quarter alone, the Chiefs put up 17 points.
Right.
So they put up a total of 24 points in the second half. So it
just shows you that anytime the Chiefs are down, they're never down.
That's right. Every Super Bowl, as we mentioned a second ago, that the Chiefs have won in the last few years that Mahomes has been here, they've been trailing by at least 10 points.
Yeah.
And many playoff games we've talked about, before, they've trailed by even more than that. So, and we'll get to like that last penalty and stuff here in just a second. But what was the turning point in this game for the Chiefs? Or maybe the downfall of the turning point for the Eagles? Either way. Yeah,
I think you nailed it with the punt or the fumble. That was the big turning point, because I think that like you said, I think it was it 14-7 at that point. Then they tied it up 14-14.
Yeah.
So at minimum, that's like, and the Eagles have moved the ball, and they moved the ball all game. So that was like a 10-point swing right there, I think. And so for them to tie it was huge. And Nick Bolton, talk about bounces. I mean, that just bounced right into his hands. And so that was fantastic. Yeah. But the turning point for me in the second half was that punt return with Tony. Was huge. And so I think it was a bad punt, not a bad punt, but I don't think – I just watched an analysis of that punt. And the Gunners, if you watch it again, are headed towards the left side of the field, and the ball goes to the right side. And so they were all out of position, all out of whack. And Tony almost gets that thing in the end zone. And that is just unbelievable. But that turned the game around, because it gave them a short field. Yeah. Get a quick score, which they needed. You need those quick scores to come back. And so they got that quick score, and huge momentum shift in the game.
Yeah. And when Tony cut it back to the left, he had like 5 guys right there around that probably should have tackled him.
Yeah.
But then as he kind of stumbles a little bit, but keeps his balance, looks over to the right, and everybody's crashed in on that left side.
Yeah.
And so by the time he pulled left, everybody did not keep their lanes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there was a huge opening to the right that he took huge advantage of. So yeah, that was a huge point. So I would agree that was a huge turning point in the second half, and this fumble in the first half as well.
Yeah.
The missed field goal potentially could have been a huge turning point for the Chiefs or the Eagles too. Just driving down the field and, miss that one. And then the next 2 offensive drives, the Chiefs have to punt. So that really threw the Chiefs offense out of rhythm. So that was a huge turning point as well, but they came out the second half ready to play.
There you go, man. They were ready. Just to sidetrack, I guess. Do you think Tommy Townsend's kicking the ball too far? Is that possible? Dude, that guy can boom. the ball, but man, it seems like sometimes he's out kicking his coverage. It's taking him for a while to get down there, and so yeah, I just think a little bit of that. But no, he played well. I mean, if we remember his last Super Bowl, he didn't play as well as that. He shanked a couple of them, and so he played really well.
Yes,
Tommy,
did.
and so that was nice to see.
Yeah, well, it's a good point you brought that up. So he in that first Super Bowl, he did not play well at all, and this year he's named AP First Team All Pro. So credit to Reed and too for sticking with the guy and seeing the potential in him too, and not giving up on him just because of one bad game, even though it was the biggest game of his career to that point. So
right, and he was a rookie. Let's make sure that he was a rookie that year. So
yeah, so agreed. So then we get to the end of the game here, right? And there's a lot we could talk about in this game, but this is the talking point that everybody's talking about right now. Chiefs' final drive, the game's tied up. Well, first off, Chiefs go up after that, after their last touchdown there to Sky Moore, after the Tony return, back to the 4 or 5, whatever it was, and then the Eagles get the ball, drive down the field, get a touchdown, and they're down by 2 points, and they decide to go for a 2-point conversion.
Yeah,
and so I don't know about you, but at that point, once they scored that 2-point conversion, and even before the 2-point conversion, I thought, you know what? It's probably better for the Chiefs to allow them to get this 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
And, right or wrong, that's just kind of what I thought. And I thought that simply because Andy Reid and the Chiefs have this habit, okay, right? They have this habit of when they get a little bit of a lead in the fourth quarter, it doesn't matter. Now, if there's 15 minutes left, maybe not. But if there's less than 10 minutes left in the game and they have a lead, I can tell you their play call: run, screen pass. That and every once in a while they'll surprise you and do something different, and it works because even the other team's not expecting it because they do run, screen pass. And so instead of the Eagles going for one and giving the Chiefs let them hold on to that 1-point lead, and then maybe the Chiefs and Andy Reid calling more conservative plays, the game's now tied, and they know that they have to go down and score. They can't just play conservative and try to run the clock out. And so I think that forced the Chiefs to be a little bit more aggressive, or to continue to be aggressive in their play calling. And I think that helped the Chiefs out in the long run.
Oh yeah, I would say so. We see that fear sometimes where they just run screen pass. It doesn't work, and we're punting.
That's right. And so the Chiefs get the ball back after the Eagles get that 2-point conversion. They go on a long drive. There's about 5 minutes and change left at that point when they get the ball. All they got to do is run the clock out and get in field goal range, and they'll have the win. And so they get down there. They're in the red zone. It's 3rd down, and Juju does the same move that has gotten the Chiefs a touchdown the previous 2 plays or 2 drives. And so the previous 2 drives, it has been 3rd down and goal from the 4 and the 5. One goes to Tony, one goes to Sky Moore on the other side. But, pre-snap movement, they run inside, and I guess they saw something on film, right? The Eagles were overcommitting. The Eagles were trying to jump routes when there was some, pre-snap motion going on. And in doing so, the Eagles got themselves out of position and gives wide open touchdowns to both Tooney and to Sky Moore. And so this one wasn't a pre-snap movement, but after the snap, same kind of movement though, tries to go inside and then pull back out to the left. And Mahomes throws it to Juju, 3rd down, incomplete. But there's some laundry on the field, right?
Yeah.
So there's some laundry on the field. They call defensive holding, automatic 1st down for the Chiefs. And at this point, there's only about a minute and some change left. And so there's not much time left at all. And the Chiefs are saying, all we got to do is run the clock out now and kick a field goal.
Boom.
And so Eagles fans are upset. What do you think about that play call? Should it be called? Should it not be called?
See, I've gone back and forth in my mind, because if we're on the other side of that call, we want, so if it's McDuffie or it's Snead covering AJ Brown, and AJ Brown does that, and he grabs, and they call it. We're furious too. But here's the thing for Chiefs fans. We have been on that side of the ball how many times, Andrew?
Too many to count. Too many to count.
Too many to count. Too many to count.
Yes.
And so we have a 2-inch offsides call on D Ford, Mahomes' first year, that takes us out of the Super Bowl. And so could the Zebras, could the refs had not blown that call and we had an interception and we win the game? Yes, they could have, but they didn't because that's the rules. And so could the refs not have called a roughing the passer on Chris Jones for hitting him in the shoulder instead of the face mask like they said they thought he did? Yes, but they didn't. They called it and they continued to drive. And so I think we've been on this side and we have felt this pain a lot.
Yeah, so with that penalty here, the cornerback there for the Eagles, James Bradbury, he said this exact quote in the locker room after the game. He said, "It was holding. I tugged his jersey. I was hoping they would let it slide."
Yeah.
So even he knew it was a penalty. And from the angle they showed on the national broadcast TV, it didn't look like anything. And you're looking at it and you're like, he didn't even tug anything. But the problem is there's a back angle camera that you can see too. And when you watch it from that angle, you can actually see the jersey being pulled. And when a receiver is trying to cut back another way and a defender is pulling their jersey, they're going to call that every time.
Yeah.
And now, did I think it really affected Juju's route? No, I don't. But
who's to say?
I would say, but who's to say for sure, right?
Right.
Who's to say for sure? But to your point, yeah, the Chiefs have been on the other side of that many times, and then the argument comes down even beyond whether that was a penalty. This is the real question: is should refs be allowed to dictate games in the final however many minutes rather than the players? Right, and that's a topic of debate all the time. Is
right.
Because one side, you don't want it, and it all depends on which side your team falls on.
Yeah.
That's exactly how you feel. Just if you're the team that benefits from it, you're like, oh, yeah, absolutely, they should call that. But if you're on the team that gets the penalty called against you, you're like, you should just let him play.
Let him play.
And so, I mean, I don't know if there's really a balance in there. I'm all about keeping refs accountable. We've talked many times this year that the refs have not been up to par this year. And
definitely.
This year overall, they have just kind of taken a step backwards.
But it feels like it's always been something with the Kansas City Chiefs. Every time they win or anytime they win, it feels like, oh, well, the refs did this, or the overtime rules aren't fair, or you have 1-5 in the backfield, so he has to throw left-handed now because he's too good right-handed. And so it's just, I mean, that's what we're gonna come down to. And so it's wild. It's wild for me to think about. It's wild that hey, these guys played all great games.
Yeah,
everybody did, except for Philly's defense. They couldn't stop the Chiefs in the second half. So if you're mad about that, you just be mad about every play then.
Yeah.
Well, the Chiefs converted here. The Chiefs converted there. I mean, like, if you're going to nitpick one play, that's what drives me crazy is we're taking all the play. And yes, did it decide a lot, because then you have Jerry McKinnon who runs to the 2-yard line and kneels down and takes the rest of the time off. I mean, yeah.
Well, and we'll get back to that slide too, which I think is a huge play. But the other side is there's a lot of penalties in the game that were not called too. I'm probably on both sides, false starts. There were some.
Oh, TJ Lang was false starting every time.
I know. So there were some like that. There was the obvious pass interference that I thought obvious in the first half against Juju, where the guy, twisted him around. I mean, Juju spun and kind of fell to the ground as the ball's in the air before it even gets to him.
Yeah, 3rd and 8.
Call, and the Chiefs have to punt because of that non-call. And so there's penalties on both sides, can go either way. And to your point, the game is not decided on one play or one penalty.
Right.
It's decided in the other, 59 minutes of the game, not in the 1 minute that it happened. Right. And so I think the refs have to call whatever it is in that moment. Whatever they've been calling the rest of the game is what they have to call in that moment too. And so, we can sit here and go back and forth and say, well, they should or shouldn't. They should just let the players or the athletes or whoever dictate the outcome of the game. But whatever they've been calling for the rest of the game, they should call in that moment as well to keep it a fair and clean game. Right. Otherwise, you just end up with chaos in the last few minutes.
Chaos. Yeah. So the ref saw something. He called it. He saw something.
Yeah. Well, if you look from the back angle camera, you can actually see the jersey being pulled, but that's not the angle that was shown on national TV.
Right.
So,
no.
Yeah.
Or on all the talk radio shows today.
Yes.
They're not showing that angle. So
they are not at all. So, but to your point of Jerick McKinnon then going down and sliding to run the clock out. Think about this. Jerick McKinnon, he was not on the team the last time they won a Super Bowl.
Right.
This is going to be his first Super Bowl. He is not really I'm going to say he's not really cemented his name in the game to this point. I'm not saying he hasn't had good plays. I'm not saying he hasn't done any of those things. But other than that, he hasn't really done much of anything, right? So he has a moment here to add his name to the record books for life of saying, I scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl, but instead keeps his head on him and instead slides down to run the clock out rather than getting a moment of glory. And I think that just goes to the point of this team all season is not been about one person. It's been about the team. Yeah. Because Travis Kelce started with like 12 touchdowns over like the first, 8 weeks or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
And then went a long stretch without any touchdowns. And you never heard one thing about him saying, man, I wish I just get the ball more. Man, I wish I get a touchdown. It was just, we're winning.
We're winning. Keep it moving.
That's right.
So, and the McKinnon said at the post game, he was like, yeah, we practiced that. That's what we're supposed to do. So it's it's Andy Reid and his coaching staff getting the boys ready during those situations and just going over the situations so they know what to do. Yeah. And the Eagles were trying to let them score. I mean, they wanted the ball back. And Yeah.
And so we got to shout out the Chiefs offensive line, right? We're going up against the first off, back up one step here. We've talked about this a lot, right? We've gone up against these top 5 defenses all year long. And Dale, what have I told you what happens after the Chiefs play these top 5 defenses?
Not top 5 anymore.
They're not a top 5 defense anymore, right? Yeah. And I think, and I'm not throwing shade at the Eagles, but to a point, they kind of fell into that same category because as of today and even last night, Eagles fans are calling for the firing of their defensive coordinator, who they've been singing the praise of all year long.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well, he's going to get a head coaching job at Arizona, maybe.
Yeah, he might, right? No. And so the Eagles all year long have been said to have a great defense, and when it comes up to this moment, they just kind of follow it short. They have the most sacks of any defense in the league by a long shot, I think by at least 15 sacks, which is huge because the Chiefs were second. And I think there's a 15 sack gap between first and second place. And last night, the Eagles had 0 sacks. So shout out to the Chiefs offensive line, especially after Mahomes got hurt and he really couldn't move near as much. He was still moving, up and down, but not side to side very well. And all of a sudden,
so is the offensive line better?
Okay, Dale. You know what? I will give you this. The Chiefs' offensive line is much better than I gave them credit for.
Yeah, there you go. All right. I win one.
You got it, man. You got it. So they're much better than I gave them credit for. And I'll say Andrew Wiley. I mean,
tearing people up.
I watched just a few highlights. I haven't watched the whole game back yet, but I watched a few highlights. They didn't chip those guys a lot.
No,
they just left them and said, "Hold your man."
Yeah,
and that was the talk all week. Is like, how much are they going to help the tackles out? And they just said,
right.
We're not.
Yeah,
it's up to you. Do your job, right? To quote, Bill Belichick there. But Andrew Wiley stepped up and did his thing.
But not only in the pass blocking did they do their job, the run game.
Yes,
they did their job. They outrushed Philly, and so Pacheco had. I mean, we haven't mentioned his name, which is crazy. I mean, we're probably like 35, 40 minutes into the talking, and we haven't even mentioned Pacheco's name yet. He had himself a game, game of his career, I would say, in the biggest moments too, and just running angry and just running people over in the secondary. I mean, my goodness. And so we got him for the next couple of years. It's pretty exciting.
That is. Yeah. And even on that rushing, the Chiefs averaged over 6 yards a carry in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that's going up against the Eagles, who put up just a little under 4 yards at 3.6 yards a carry. The Chiefs put up 158 yards total rushing to the Eagles 115. So, I mean, those are some huge numbers.
How many of Hurts had 70 yards of those? 70?
Yeah, 70. And I believe I heard that that's the most rush yards in a Super Bowl by a quarterback.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's big. It's big.
Yeah. So you take those 71 yards away, and what are you left with the running backs back there? Not much.
Not much at all. Not much
so
at all.
40, 50 yards? Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around 50, 50 yards or so. So not very many. Yeah, so how about this? So Mahomes got the Super Bowl MVP. He is the first player since Kurt Warner did in 1999 to win both the NFL regular season MVP as well as the Super Bowl MVP. So it's been 23 years. So it almost seems like anymore that the MVP award has become a quarterback award, right? Which, right or wrong, that's just what it is at this point. So thinking outside the box with that. So other than Mahomes, who gets your MVP vote on the Chiefs team?
Yeah. Okay. So if Nick Bolton would have got that second touchdown, he would have got it for sure. But since he didn't, I'm giving it to the entire offensive line.
All right.
So the entire offense.
Give me one.
All of them.
All right. Well, all of them. Okay, I'll take it. But give me one guy.
Okay.
Is there any one guy? I'll just ask this way. You don't have to give me an exact.
But I got a guy.
Is there any one guy that stood out on that offensive line?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Wiley, and he did do a great job. But I'm going to say, your guy, Orlando Brown, did Ed.
My guy.
Your guy, Orlando Brown.
My guy's Trey Smith on that offense.
I know your guy, Trey Smith, is, but I'm just messing with you. But yes, Orlando Brown on the tackle, left by himself, no help. He did a tremendous job protecting Mahomes, and in that run game was just fabulous. So, yeah, I think they did. I mean, you could have given it to Tooney, you could give it to Smith, you could give it to Creed. I thought they all did a great job. And so I was half joking about the Orlando Brown just to mess with you.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I would think all of them did just a tremendous job of keeping Mahomes clean and healthy, and then to really push themselves. Because I think the Eagles' defensive line were 3 sacks away from beating the 85 Bears in the most sacks in a season. So
yeah, they're close. That's for sure.
they were close. They were close. But yeah, so who would you give if it weren't the offensive line? Who would you give?
Even though he didn't have that second fumble recovery for a touchdown, I'm still giving it to Nick Bolton.
Okay,
simply because you watched that game, and I haven't even watched it back again, but just that first time watching it through, that dude was everywhere. Even if he wasn't the one making the tackle, he was forcing them back to whatever place. I mean, he's the one that pressured Jalen Hurts, even though he didn't cause the fumble. They caused Jalen Hurts to try to do whatever and just drop the ball. He's the one.
Would you? Oh, sorry.
I can say you can also give another shout out to on the defensive side to Frank Clark, because even though he didn't have a sack, there's 2 official sacks on the books, but none of them were really sacks. Hurts just ran out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage. So they're sacks, but they're really not. So, but Frank Clark
could have got a Big Mac today. Dang.
I know you could have. Yeah. So Frank Clark is another big guy, but I'm going to go with Nick Bolton though. I think he would deserve the MVP behind Mahomes.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned
it, but
you mentioning Nick Bolton and like his intensity. I felt like the defense came out with an intensity where they were going to be the tougher team. And that was exciting to see. And I kind of set the stage, especially on that first little play. They just destroyed Sanders on that run. And so, they were definitely the more physical team most of the night. Not all the night, but most of the night. They seemed like the more physical, we're going to hit you in the mouth kind of team.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people are sitting here thinking, well, that's not true, because the Eagles went up and down the field on the Chiefs defense. And to their credit, the Eagles did move the ball pretty easily against the Chiefs. But when they need to stop, they got to stop. Right?
They got to stop. That's right.
All they needed was 1 or 2 stops in the game, and that's exactly what they got. They got 2 punts and 1 fumble, and that's all they needed to turn the game around, including, the fumble return for a touchdown, which changed the entire game. So,
in which we have to remember that this is an offensive ran league.
Yes.
So all the rules are bent towards the offense. So that's why this bend don't break is kind of the way that the model that's being taken now.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sure we'll do another episode here pretty soon to kind of
Oh
recap
yeah,
a little bit more of the season, but just any quick thoughts on the season as a whole for the Chiefs?
pretty unreal. I mean, I've said that like 18 times now, but this whole season just been. I mean, it's had its ups and downs, its ebbs and flows. I mean, we weren't even supposed to be here,
Yeah. Supposed to be a
and
rebuilding year, right?
rebuild
We weren't
it.
even supposed to win our division.
Yeah, it was a rebuilding year, and the whole. I mean, just for the fact that a whole new wide receiver room besides McCole Hardman and Travis Kelsey.
Yeah.
The defensive side of the ball was just brand new. Chris Jones, Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, Thornhill, kind of and Snead were the staples. But other than that, it was kind of all new. Frank Clark, you could throw in there. But yeah, just for them to do what they did in this season is just unbelievable. And so it's exciting to be a Chiefs fan, and hopefully they keep it moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say once again, if this is what the Chiefs do in a rebuilding year, watch out NFL.
Oh yeah,
Right. So I mean, the Chiefs have put everybody on notice now that not only are they the team to beat, they might be the team to beat for the next 10 years. So as long as you got Mahomes and Reed, and there was some speculation of people asking Reed, like, are you retiring? Like, I didn't even know that was a question right now. And I don't think there's any chance he's retiring after this year. I think there would have been a lot more conversations going into that.
He's going to retire in Mahomes' prime, going into his prime.
Yeah, that dude loves football too much and has been waiting for a quarterback of this caliber to. I mean, he was already a Hall of Fame coach. Now getting 2 Super Bowls, he has solidified himself as a Hall of Fame coach.
Oh yeah.
So, man, thankful to have that guy here. We've had a lot of rough seasons leading up to this, so it's not going to last forever. So we're going to enjoy every bit of it. Every Super Bowl victory that we can win, we're going to take 100% of the time. So, last question for you before we jump off of this. What are the chances that the Chiefs repeat next year?
Ooh.
So
I don't know. It's honestly tough. I'm going to say, are they favorite? Have the odds come out for next year?
They came out last night, my friend, and the Chiefs are already favored. So
are they favored to repeat?
They are.
Oh wow. I would say yeah. I mean, like you're gonna think I think I'll be interested to see what they do with the wide receiver. I know Juju's on a 1-year deal. I don't know if MVS was on a 1-year deal, but it'd be
MVS was here for a couple of years. I think that he's on a 3-year deal.
Okay, so yeah, you got a couple question marks, but yeah, I think that why not? 1-5's back there still, right? Why not?
Right.
Why not repeat?
So what's the chances you'd give him? What percentage?
I'd give him 80%.
All right, I like it.
Yeah,
I think the Chiefs have got to be the favorite still, just because 1-5 is still back there. Mahomes is still back there. Andy Reid's still going to be coaching. They've got to be the favorites. I don't know what percentage I give them, but I give them at least a 75% chance to repeat.
Yeah.
Good as anybody to repeat. Might as well pick them.
I mean, the AFC Championship game will be at Arrowhead. I mean, it's the Arrowhead Invitational.
That's right. So. That's right. Absolutely. So, yeah, if you're not following us on Twitter already, make sure you are. It's Kingdom_Korner on Twitter, both with K's. Kingdom and Korner start with a K there. We just finished up another giveaway today, and we'll probably be starting another one with a signed Chris Jones.
Wow.
Authentic, verified, all that stuff.
Come on.
Playing card. So, I mean, man, all I know is it seems like these prizes keep getting better and better. I would suggest you just go ahead and follow us on Twitter. You always get to be in the drawing for any of these. You have to be following us. You have to retweet it. And if you tag a friend in the comments, you get additional entries for each friend that you tag. So a lot of ways to get entries, a lot of ways to be giving these away and to get in the drawing for them. So we want to keep these too, but man, we just want to share the love a little bit. We want you to be able to follow us and get all the good content we're putting out there. So if you have any questions you want us to cover during this off season, anything with Chiefs related or even NFL related, shoot us a message on Twitter or comment on anything that we're putting out there. We'd be glad to address any of that. So thanks for joining us in this episode of the Kingdom Corner. This episode is brought to you by Ohe Threads, where a portion of every purchase goes to support missions all over the world, one super soft tee at a time. We'll see you next time right here in the Kingdom Corner.